Aloha and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on This Is Now. We begin with news just into our newsroom. Honolulu police have made an arrest in connection with a series of road rage incidents in Ewa Beach. Dashcam video shows one of the intense encounters in the middle of traffic on Fort Weaver Road. A man is seen getting out of his vehicle to yell at the driver behind him, and 3 other people in recent weeks have reported similar incidents. They say they were also accosted by the man who was driving the silver Mustang. Now, HPD has booked a 52-year-old man on terroristic threatening, harassment, and drug offenses. However, we are not naming him as charges have yet to be filed.
Also developing this morning, a request from Maui police. The department is seeking information regarding a deadly hit and run early Wednesday morning in Kihei. That crash killed 50-year-old James Perry. Police say they now suspect several vehicles may have been involved as they were heading along Pi'ike Avenue between South Kihei Road and Liloa Drive. Anyone with information is being asked to contact Maui police.
And we go now to our other top story. Another incident of chemicals have been reported in the state's water supply.
That's right. Officials have found PFAS chemicals at a well in Kunia. Mahealani Richardson has the details.
Late yesterday, the Department of Health released a news release that said that PFAS forever chemicals, those are toxic chemicals, were found in well number 4, and that serves Kunia Village. Now, Kunia Village is an agricultural community, a very long time and old community that serves about 650 residents. Now, previously in March, well number 3 had been discovered. There was discoveries of PFAS. So this latest discovery of PFAS for well number 4, we know that the levels exceeded Department of Health and proposed U.S. EPA standards. That's a concern for a lot of environmental advocates because of the surrounding agricultural uses in the area and because of those residents who live there. Now, last night, Hawaii News Now visited with residents who are getting bottled water from the Kunia Water Association. That's the association that manages those wells. And here's what some of those residents had to say.
Apparently, it was supposed to be 3 to 4 months, but it could take longer because it's not guaranteed. First, some people have been using the sink water to brush their teeth or wash their face.
Why are they doing that?
Because it's really inconvenient to grab like water bottles into your bathroom and reusing it after like 2 washes.
How livable is this situation? I mean, is it sustainable long term?
Definitely not.
So well number 4, which is the latest well to have a discovery of PFAS, which is that toxic chemical that has links to all sorts of health impacts, including cancer, is managed by the Kunia Water Association, and it is on a parcel of land which is owned by the Island Palms community. Right now, the Army is involved because right now the Army is using its Schofield well to deliver water to the Kunia village. And so at this point in time, those residents will continue to get the bottled water, but they're getting water delivered through the pipelines from Schofield so that they can use it for other uses except drinking and cooking.
Thank you so much, Mahea. At this point, is there any indication for how long those residents will be using bottled water?
Well, we've been speaking to the president of the Kunia Water Association, and she said from the get-go, when well number 3 had that discovery of PFAS, they started delivering those huge 5-gallon jugs of water to every single residence, and they're going to continue to do that. Now, right now, the Army, we just got off the phone with the Army, and they are continuing to deliver water through their pipelines from Schofield, and they're testing the Army water. Now, what's going to happen after that? If there is a discovery of PFAS, we don't know what's going to be happening, but the Kunia Water Association says it could be some time that it's going to be continuing to deliver water, bottled water, to the residents and encouraging them to continue drinking bottled water and not drinking from the tap, because that water from Schofield is simply an emergency measure. So it's really unknown just exactly how long they're going to be continuing to be told to drink that bottled water.
Our Mahealani Richardson, thank you so much for joining us here on This Is Now.
It's crunch time at the Capitol. Today is the last day for House and Senate lawmakers to hammer out details of key funding priorities as the legislative session winds down. As we've reported, there are plenty of details still up in the air, from spending on tax breaks to how much money will be set aside for a new Aloha Stadium. One issue that has been agreed to, lawmakers have okayed a huge infusion of cash for affordable teacher housing. We'll have more on the progress at the legislature in our afternoon and evening newscasts. Well, despite efforts from former President Trump to stop the process, VP Mike Pence testified before a grand jury this week, and it all centers on the 2020 election. Willie James Inman has the latest from D.C.
Former Vice President Mike Pence left a D.C. courthouse after testifying before a federal grand jury for more than 7 hours. Pence's testimony is part of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into efforts by former President Trump to overturn the 2020 election.
There may be no better star witness for the special counsel than President Trump's own vice president.
Former President Trump pushed Pence to stop Congress from certifying the election, even doing so publicly during the rally on January 6th.
If Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election.
But Pence may have witnessed other efforts by Trump to stay in the White House.
What the president said, what he told the vice president to do, what the vice president saw, what he heard the president telling others, what, if any, plans the president shared with him or with others.
Pence's appearance before the grand jury could be a sign that the special counsel is moving closer to a decision about whether to indict the former president. Trump told a crowd in New Hampshire Thursday that the investigations into him only help.
The harder they hit, the better we do.
Pence is considering running for president in 2024.
Hello, Iowa.
Potentially pitting himself against his former boss. Willie James Inman, CBS News, Washington.
Family members are remembering the Australian man who fell overboard on a Hawaii-bound cruise ship as a kind, beautiful, and gentle soul. The man has been identified as Warwick Tolmash, 35, of Brisbane. The Coast Guard suspended the search for him yesterday. Officials said he fell overboard on the Quantum of the Seas 3 days ago, about 500 miles south of Kona. In a statement, the family said they are heartbroken from the loss, saying he will be deeply missed. They've asked for privacy during this difficult time. Meanwhile, the ship docked in Honolulu. On
Molokai, an attempted channel crossing gone wrong led to an overturned boat and a huge mess at Kepuhi Bay. This was the scene Monday afternoon at the beach on the island's western end. We're told a group of about 5 people, including 2 international swimmers, were planning to swim from Molokai to Oahu when an escort vessel anchored in rough seas close to shore. Waves quickly overturned the boat, shattering it on the reef, leaving debris and the strong smell of fuel.
It was pretty horrific. It busted up pretty well. I mean, the gas smell was overwhelming. So I left the beach. I came back up here and just kind of watched them try to get what was remaining of the hull out of the water, which was pretty difficult because it was pretty rough.
To me, it's like something that could have been prevented, and we're over here fighting for our resources, yet our resources are slowly getting poisoned by people's carelessness, and I think they need to be held accountable for, like, this guy, he anchored right in the lineup.
DLNR tells us the area has since been cleared of scattered debris and the odor of fuel no longer remains. We've attempted to contact the swimmers involved but have not received a response.
After a months-long closure, Iao Valley is set to reopen. After a lengthy closure, Maui's Iao Valley is set to reopen. The park closed last August for slope stabilization work and parking lot improvements. Visitors will once again be welcome on Monday. Local residents will be able to visit the park freely without a reservation. Tourists, however, will need to make one, which officials hope will help keep the area from becoming overcrowded. Furthermore, non-residents over the age of 3 will be charged $5 to get in. Online reservations can be made at gostateparks.hawaii.gov. State officials are also considering implementing a reservation system for Makena State Park in South Maui. And a heads up for Oahu residents, green lasers will be beaming down across the South Shore. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is conducting coastal mapping surveys using LiDAR. The lasers measure distance and are mounted to an aircraft. The military said broad beams of green light will likely be visible from Barbers Point to Diamond Head between midnight and 5 a.m. This starts today and lasts through the weekend. Officials say brief exposure to the light is safe for the unprotected eye. The Army says more of this activity is planned throughout the state all the way through June.
Lawmakers are looking into a mental health crisis that many say is fueled by social media. Ivan Rodriguez joins us with more on a proposed bill that is targeting these social media companies and explores the use among children.
Mark, the bill would create a national minimum age for social media use and also require tech companies to get parental consent before creating an account for teenagers. All of this also reflects a growing trend across all levels of government to restrict how different platforms engage with young users. A bipartisan group of senators unveiling legislation this week that would establish 13 as the national minimum age for social media use and create strict standards for verifying a user's age.
Making young people feel the very ways that we as parents and as a society don't want them to feel is built into the business model.
The proposed bill also requires parental consent for users aged 13 to 17 and bans tech platforms from using teens' personal information to target them with content or advertising.
Social media companies have a duty to help keep kids safe and parents informed, or face serious consequences.
Lawmakers say the legislation is in line with guidance from the U.S. Surgeon General.
The skewed and often distorted environment of social media often does a disservice to many of those children.
Senator Richard Blumenthal is working on a separate bill to address the problem and says he has concerns about this version. Tech accountability advocates agree the bill is focused on the wrong issue.
This bill doesn't actually put any responsibility onto the tech companies. Instead, it's putting more responsibility onto parents and young people to kind of self-police.
Nicole Gill with the nonprofit Accountable Tech argues law should incentivize tech companies to redesign their platforms to protect mental health and privacy.
We have an opportunity right now to rethink the way that these platforms work for young people, and we should take it.
Senator Brian Schatz says the bill has not yet been presented to social media platforms, but predicted that in short order, the industry will be deploying, quote, an army of lobbyists to fight against it.
Ivan, thank you very much. Now, there is a lot to unpack when you see a bill like this. So, first off, how would this age verification program work?
So the bill seeks to create a government-run age verification that can certify users' ages as well as parental status based on identification that they can upload to this government-run platform or through a third party. But lawmakers also say that these tech companies can also do it on their own throughout their own company, or they can also hire a third party to do it as well.
And there's also the issue of enforcement. So how would these companies be held accountable if they fail to comply?
Well, violations, Mark, could mean millions of dollars in Federal Trade Commission fines. It's also worth noting, though, that this would not apply to a long list of tech products that include things like email services, teleconferencing providers, and also review sites such as Yelp, just to name a few.
But still in the early stages, and we'll see what unfolds. Ivan Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great one. Always a great time when we get to talk about this team. The Rainbow Warriors men's volleyball team now off to Virginia to defend their national championship.
Yeah, our Kyle Chinen and Billy V are at UH Manoa with all that you need to know.
Thank you very much. We're here in front of the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center, of course, the mecca of University of Hawaii Rainbow Warrior Volleyball.
That's right, and we were talking all things national championship as the Bows head to Fairfax, Virginia next week, looking for that third straight national championship. Billy, I'm going to be up there. The team, they're getting ready. It's going to be so much fun, the energy. I remember last year's tournament. I can't wait.
What was that like? You know, they're with the final point and Hawaii realizing that they have two in a row.
Oh, it was, you could feel it. It was like a ticking time bomb. The fans were on their feet for Aloha Ball. You get net violation from Long Beach, and the crowd goes electric. Even some fans and the players stormed the court, and it was just so much fun just to see that moment of realization, what they were able to just accomplish. And now they're teetering into some legendary dynasty territory this year with that coveted three-peat.
Okay, so what does Hawaii need to do? Who do they need to get past in order to get there?
Right, so they have two games they need to get through to get a third national championship. They are the 2 seeds, so they have bye all the way into the semifinals, and they will have to face a combination of 3 teams. You have Ohio State and King in the play-in game. They will fight off to get a spot against Penn State. Now, Penn State, if you remember, volleyball fans remember that name from the Outrigger Invitational this year. They were Hawaii's first loss of the season. It was you know it left a sour taste in their mouth. So if the Bows end up getting the Nittany Lions again, it will be a fun matchup. But don't count out those other two teams, just a strong, solid bracket altogether this year.
Okay, just a reminder that semi game is going to be on NCAA.com, but that championship game, that's going to be on ESPN2, and that's going to be, what's the date for that?
That is Saturday, May 6th. That is 11:30 start time, Hawaii time here on ESPN2. It's going to be a lot of fun, but don't forget, you're going to want to check out that semifinal match, and I will be there. I'll have post game, I'll have game highlights, I'll have some kind of lunch at some point. I'll remember to breathe and eat, but we'll make sure I have a lot of fun up there. Yeah.
Okay, and just a reminder that the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warrior volleyball team will be leaving from just behind the Stan Sheriff Center. They'll be boarding the buses just down the stairway in back of me, and that's going to be Monday, 4:30 in the afternoon, as they board that flight to go all the way over to the East Coast.
Yeah, make sure you cheer them on, give them a lot of hey, it's May Day.
Oh yeah,
May Day. So May Day is Lay Day here in Hawaii. So if you want to give them some lay before they head off, you should go do that on Monday.
Okay, and if you need more information, we'll put all of that online at hawaiinewsnow.com. Let's get you back into the studio.
Maybe Kyle will have lunch.
Maybe.
Those work trips can get pretty hectic.
I don't know.
Right?
I think we want him some live reports, and This Is Now. What do you think, Mark?
We'll see if he can take a break, right? We'll give you a live look outside right now. Coconut Island. Just a gorgeous, stunning, vivid shot. After talk of so much rain earlier in the week, look at the sunshine on this Aloha Friday.
It's always fun to look at Hilo, especially during non-Merry Monarch times, because it's just such a beautiful, quiet, sleepy town. I miss it.
And, that shot is always so iconic when you have the coastline right there and you have the volcano in the background. Really just amazing. Let's send it over to Guy Hoggy for what we can expect this weekend.
Now, our futurecast shows that stubborn mass of moisture hanging with us, probably through the better part of today, even in through tomorrow morning. Should be pretty damp tonight, too. Not everywhere is going to get it. That's low-level moisture, low-level clouds. And then by, say, Saturday night into Sunday, we'll see much drier conditions move in. Not a whole lot of significant rainfall after that. So we got to get through tonight, today and tonight with the wet weather, through tomorrow morning as well, especially for Maui County and Oahu. That's why we put that in red. Those are the areas expected to get the most rain. Leeward sides, not that much. In fact, already leeward sides on Oahu are drying up. So tomorrow we're going to start out a little cloudy, a little damp, drier as the day progresses. Trade winds picking up. They'll be running nice and firm from Saturday through Monday, easing up on Tuesday as another disturbance runs in. So we got to get through a day and a half of wet weather before things start to clear up for the latter part of the weekend.
We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of the Kilauea eruption in 2018 that uprooted the lives of so many in Leilani estates. Starting this Sunday, tune into Hawaii News Now for a series of special reports looking back at the historic event. Our team is also heading to Hawaii Island and will provide live updates throughout next week. That's all happening on Hawaii News Now and hawaiinewsnow.com.
Well, in a dramatic public display calling for action on the climate crisis, activists targeted the renowned Little Dancer sculpture. Two protesters smeared red and black paint over the plinth and casing of Edgar Degas' famous sculpture. This happened yesterday at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. One of the protesters could be heard saying, quote, "I can't do my job unless I have a government that does their job in looking out for the health and safety of our children." Declare Emergency, a climate emergency activist organization, claimed responsibility for the protest. The sculpture was removed and will undergo damage assessment from the museum's conservation team.
Well, when King Charles is crowned next weekend, it'll be Britain's first coronation in 70 years.
Tina Kraus takes us to London.
You can tell they have weathered over the years.
The images may have faded, but Max Hancock's memories of Britain's last coronation are still sharp.
At that time, I was 19 years old.
The Georgia resident was stationed in England with the U.S. Air Force in 1953 and remembers taking a train into London with his comrades on the day of Queen Elizabeth's coronation.
And it was packed with people. There was 1 million+ people.
A day of rejoicing for Her Majesty's subjects.
Seeing that parade, seeing the enthusiasm, I knew I was seeing something special.
One of my big memories is how joyful it all was. There was a lot of laughter.
90-year-old Joyce Lewis has photos from a coronation tea with her friends.
People were expecting a really grand occasion, and a grand occasion it was.
The climax of the ceremony has arrived.
81-year-old James Wilkinson had a front row seat for the crowning as a Westminster Abbey choir boy.
When the Archbishop lifted up the crown right up high and then lowered it onto the Queen's head, I knew this was going to be a thing I should never forget.
It's a moment also seared into the memory of Prince Charles, who was just 4 at the time. 7 decades later, the 74-year-old will be crowned king. Tina Krause, CBS News, London.
All right, well, tomorrow marks National Independent Bookstore Day. If you've noticed more local bookstores popping up around the island, you're not imagining things.
Yeah, our digital producer Melanie Yamaguchi reports on the growth of indie bookstores in the islands.
Hawaii Kai native Josh Spencer spent the last 20 years running 2 successful bookstores in Los Angeles. But last fall, he and his wife took a huge leap of faith to return to Hawaii and open a brand new bookstore in Chinatown. Welcome to Skullface.
I like to say everything here is kind of deep, dark, weird, or hard.
Skullface is just the latest independent bookstore to emerge on Oahu. Indie bookstore owners in Hawaii feel like they're riding a wave of popularity. They say, unlike big box stores that are one size fits all, indie bookstores offer a different experience, a deeply personal one, dedicated to their community.
I think there's been an actual resurgence of independent bookstores nationwide.
According to the American Booksellers Association, more than 300 independent bookstores have opened nationwide since the start of the pandemic in 2020. In Hawaii, stores like Skullface, Native Books at Arts and Letters, and Village Books and Music have all emerged as brick and mortars in the past 3 years. They all point to a growing demand for a more one-on-one, humanized experience, especially after the pandemic. The shop Books and Curiosities in Kaimuki opened its doors in 2018. Co-owner David DeLuca has seen his sales grow since the start and says customer interaction has a lot to do with it.
Our ability to connect with one another in conversation is the most authentic thing that we can have.
DeLuca says one of the most vital parts about independent bookstores is that they're reflective of their community.
Like they're a fabric, they're a thread that's woven into this blanket that sort of envelopes the community and the neighborhood from which they sit in.
Another driving factor that led to the resurgence in reading and books, social media niche groups like Book Talk on TikTok, BookTube on YouTube, and Bookstagram on Instagram, attracting a new generation of readers.
There's nothing like the enthusiasm of a young person when they discover books that they love for the first time.
Spencer says he sees so much value in independent bookstores as he continues to evolve his own.
There's nothing else where you can go where you're kind of bombarded by all this visual stimulation and mental stimulation and, spiritual stimulation.
You can find Skullface and a list of other independent bookstores and their specific genres on our website at hawaiinewsnow.com. Melanie Yamaguchi, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for that report. Mark, you got a favorite book?
Ruling Chiefs of Hawaii by Samuel Kamakau. I love Hawaiian history.
Good one. My favorite is Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. Amazing story.
Very emotional story.
Very much so. Thank you all so much for joining us right here on This Is Now. Have a wonderful Aloha Friday and a great weekend.